Born to make more Kirblogs for your face. Welcome back. Pokecember continues onward. This is a month solid of me doing Pokemon-related Kirblogs and the like. Hope you all have been enjoying them so far. This next one is a topic submitted from one of the users. This is from Ryfangor Joins, asking, "Hey Kirb, for Pokecember, I was wondering if you could maybe do a list of your favorite Pokemon movies. I grew up watching the Pokemon movies. I'd say Pokemon 3 is my favorite. I'm really curious about which ones you like." This is bizarre because this is like the third or fourth top 10 list Kirblog that I've done in the span of like a month or so, and I don't often do these, but I felt that this was kind of a proper format for this kind of topic, so figured I'd do it this way. But so I have a list of my top 6 favorite Pokemon movies in this case. Why top 6? Because I like to go one step beyond. And also, I figured that this would work with just like the amount of ones that I like that much to put them in the list. I have seen most of the Pokemon movies, and I do enjoy like the vast majority of them. There's very few that I don't really like that much. In fact, there's only one that I can think of, which is Destiny Deoxys, that I really, really don't like at all. But all the ones that I've seen, which are nearly all of them, I've actually really enjoyed, because I found that the Pokemon movies have been a really great opportunity for the staff of the anime to tell like a cool little beginning, middle, and end story in the span of like, an hour or so, or however long they tend to be. I think they're usually like at least an hour long or so. And the animation, they always look fantastic, and sometimes they can tell a really cool story with the movie-specific characters, like these certain legendary Pokemon and some of the humans and et cetera. So I put together 6 of them that are among my favorites, and I'm gonna share them all with you today, and maybe they line up with yours as well. So start off with number 6, Pokemon Heroes, Latios and Latias. This is the 5th one, and I suppose it's the only one that has a Ruby and Sapphire Pokemon in it. I talked a little bit about this in my my top 10 Pokemon video a little while ago. It's technically the Season 5 movie, so it's still part of the the Gold and Silver era, as it was. But that aside, I mean, I think that it didn't hold up as much as I thought it did when I went back and watched it recently. I watched it again within the last couple of years. I remember really, really loving it. I saw it at first at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York City with my dad and Mike Lucas. We went to go see it at the time. And I remember like being totally in love with this movie when it first came out. And also, I had seen a trailer for it on. I had the DVD for Pokemon Movie 4, and they had a trailer for it in Japanese. And I was like, this looks awesome. I really want to see this one. And it lived up to the hype for me when I went to go see it at the time. But when I went back and watched it, the story wasn't quite as strong as I remember it being. So this is why it's at the bottom of my list here. But the reason that it's still on this list is because it's visually one of the most breathtaking things with Pokemon animation that I've ever seen. The actual location that they go to, I believe it's called Altomare. It's very modeled after Venice. This very pretty looking, I know that Venice isn't actually like as pretty as people think it is anymore, but it's like a water type of city, and Latios and Latias are the guardians of that city. And there's a whole kind of plot that unfolds with the two of them. It's from a while back. You can probably still track it down on Amazon. I would recommend picking that one up if possible. I think they have like DVD packs of like certain movies kind of put together by this point. But the highlight for me were, in this case, I think Latios and Latias themselves were really, really cute. They had a great little arc to them that I will not spoil. But I'll say it was very adorable, very heartwarming, and it was the one part of the story that I think really stood out like above the rest. So yeah, not the strongest, but definitely holds a special place in my heart. The next one, number 5 for me, is Celebi, Voice of the Forest, which I was just talking about a second ago. This is Pokemon Movie 4, or Pokemon Forever. So this one I did also go see in theaters, and I remember, I think likewise in the Pokemon third movie DVD, they had a Japanese trailer for this one. I was like, oh, this is cool. Celebi being one of my favorite legendary Pokemon at the time the Gold and Silver came out, I was really curious about how a movie with him would have turned out. I know that originally the intention was that Celebi was going to be in the GS ball in the Gold and Silver season, and that had to be cut, and then they just ultimately went with this movie instead. And that kind of sucks, but at the same time, I feel like what they did with him ultimately was a very satisfying kind of story. Really, really cool time travel, a simple and not overly complicated or convoluted time travel story with Sammy being taken from the past and brought to the future, where he meets Ash and forms a bond with them. And what was kind of cool about this one, I found out from the commentaries, is there's actually footage in the American release of it that was not there originally. The fact that at this time 4Kids was willing to and had the money to commission entirely new animated sequences specifically for this production was pretty incredible. And actually, I admit I kind of really like what they did. I don't want to spoil it because I think the twist with it is actually really, really cool and it's worth checking out. But basically, they extrapolated upon what was kind of one of the coolest things about the movie originally and made it a little bit more like part of the main story, like more so than it was originally intended. And normally I'm not really cool with that sort of thing, but I feel like it wasn't taking away from what the vision of the film was. I feel like it actually just kind of added to it, and it was a fun little kind of wink to the audience. I won't say anything more about it. If you've already seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's also a very heartwarming story, great bond between Ash, Pikachu, Sammy, and Celebi, like those 4 characters particularly, kind of the friendship that they formed together throughout the course of this movie was really, really well done, and still holds up, but it's definitely one of my favorites. Next one, number 4, is Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. This is Pokemon Movie 8. This was the last movie in the series that was actually dubbed by the original 4Kids voice cast at the time. And this was, I think I might have stopped following the show or close to it, or maybe like it hadn't aired yet or something. But I think this was the last thing I saw with the 4Kids cast, because I think it might have had come out a little bit after their run of the show had stopped. The timing I can't entirely remember, but either way, really solid film. It had some good elements of a few of the past ones, particularly Jirachi Wishmaker, and where there's a big sequence where Ash and a lot of the main characters go on sort of like a hike into a dangerous piece of territory. They go to this really cool location. It's like this giant like tree made out of crystals that's like tied to the land or something, and it's related to Mew. The one little disappointing thing about this one, this isn't really a spoiler because it's not part of the plot itself, but I think that they're implying that Mew transformed into the Ho-Oh that Ash saw in the first episode, and because it has the ability to shapeshift and all that. And also I think that they're even implying that the Mew in this movie is not the same as the Mew from Pokemon the first movie, which is weird because I think there's only supposed to be one, and we'll get to that later. With something else related to Mewtwo. But anyway, that aside, it's all of those little minor things don't really take too far away from it. It's a really cool story about Lucario, particularly. Is I would say Lucario is like the main character of this movie, and this is kind of a good example of what I like about. Oftentimes, what I feel the Pokemon movies tend to be is they're usually about, or they're meant to be about, whatever the legendary Pokemon is. Most of the time, often because they talk, like they have the ability to talk, and we can understand what their thoughts and feelings are and everything. And Ash and his friends happen to be part of their story, and they interact with them and touch their lives, and influence them in a positive way that progresses their story. So in this case, Lucario, who he was awoken from ancient times, and he had this whole dynamic with this character Sir Aaron, and Jason Griffith on Sir Aaron, sorry, and Sean Schemmel on the part of Lucario, who got to come back and voice him in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS recently, which was awesome. Really, really solid performances from both of them in the dub. Loved both of their work on that, very much so. And it's a really heartfelt story between the two of them. And Ash kind of, carries on, I guess, sort of the will of Sir Aaron, and how he, wants to help Lucario fulfill this mission and free this land from a potential threat. Part of which has to do also with the Reggie, the legendary rocks, I suppose you could say, the 3 Reggie characters, Reggie Ice, Reggie Steel, and Reggie Rock. Sorry, the rocks, Reggie Rock. Yes. Of which, by the way, they're terrifying in this movie. The 3 Reggies are very scary. Some of the only scary Pokemon I've ever seen, because they're like killer robots that they have to come across while they're in this giant tree thing. And there's more to it. They also dress up in some cool outfits, which Veronica Taylor, the original voice of Ash, was often very tickled by. They had these kind of like medieval sort of like knightly warrior sort of things. All the characters are dressed up in, because they go to like a ball or something. It's a really cute one. I really enjoyed it. It's a great kind of, again, not the last thing that they recorded, but it's a good note to go out on for the original cast, as this was one of the last things that they did before the switch happened. But great performances all around. As always, great animation. I think it had some of the first Diamond and Pearl Pokemon all in it, including Lucario. They had, I think, Mime Jr. was in there, and Bonsly and some other ones. But really solid one. Definitely recommend it. You can very easily find this one on Amazon, I think. Also, by the way, the ending credits theme song of movie 8 is fantastic. Just a little, it totally gets stuck in my head all the time. Anyway, next one, number 3, movie 12, Arceus and the Jewel of Life. Not Arceus, because we're not talking about arses here for the British listeners. Anyway, Arceus was a really, really intriguing Pokemon. I was always really curious about. He's not one of my favorite Pokemon, like, overall, but I was really intrigued about him when I first learned some things about this character when Diamond and Pearl was first coming out. And obviously, Nintendo hadn't acknowledged him yet because he wasn't officially revealed until shortly before this movie happened, with the official thing and everything. With like, I don't know if they actually had a giveaway for him. I think that like. I heard something about how like that never actually happened, or I can't entirely remember the story. But either way, Arceus was a really, really cool character in this movie. Like this kind of closest equivalent to the Pokemon world having a godly figure, and that it's like the master of creation. And this kind of godly force that this in the movie, there's this ancient race of people that worship Arceus like as if it were a god, more or less. And while it's not a time travel story, what's kind of cool about this one is that there's a parallel where we have these characters that existed in the past that first interacted with Arceus. And then we have the characters in the present, including obviously Ash and his friends, and some of the other ones who are kind of going through and trying to find different things and figure out what's going on with this whole mystery with them. And including there are these 2 characters that show up in this one. That have been consistently trying to look for things regarding Dialga and Palkia and Giratina from the previous 2 movies that happened before this one. I think this was the 3rd of the Diamond and Pearl era movies that had happened. I was sad. I really wanted to audition for this one too because there were a few characters I was really interested in, but sadly I missed out on that one. But either way, yeah. Also, a little side note: the voice director Tom Whalen had mentioned at a convention panel a while ago. Apparently, Vince D'Onofrio from. He was the gross farmer guy that got eaten out by the alien or something and turned into a vessel in Men in Black. He was originally going to voice Arceus, and then some plans with that fell through, and it didn't really work, unfortunately. But yeah, just a little side note about that. Anyway, I really liked this one. I felt that it was a very different kind of movie. And it was. I felt like it was the kind of thing that Ash and the others had never really gotten to experience, like in any of the previous ones, or even in the show at any point either. And kind of them being tossed into. I mean, they've in previous ones they had been tossed into like a different sort of cultural, like weird sort of area that they weren't used to, and like kind of trying to fumble around and figure out, okay, what do we do with this, and how do we help in any way that we can, and etc. But this one was very different because Arceus both being like. Almost sort of a protagonist and an antagonist at the same time, this very kind of like weird wild card sort of character in the context of the entire story. It made for a really interesting, like just different kind of dynamic for everything. And, he himself was also very like a very different sort of character, this sort of like mystical, gender ambiguous, more so in the Japanese version from what I understand, but, kind of thing. Like it was just, I don't know, it felt very different, very stand out. And I feel like that's kind of what left a big impact on me, of the ones that I have on here. It's one of the few like later generation movies that I have on this list. A lot of the later ones I unfortunately had not gotten to see, sadly. But this was one of the latest ones that I had seen like from a few years back that I remember like really, really enjoying, like just from start to finish. I think when it was airing on Cartoon Network at the time. And this one's definitely worth checking out if you can find it. Probably be able to find this one in Best Buy because it's so recent. But definitely earned its top 3 spot. Next up, number 2, Spell of the Unknown, or Pokemon the Third movie. This one I have gone back and watched many, many times. I still have the DVD for it. As a kid, I used to rewatch this all the time. And but the reason that it's still high up on the list for me is not just because of the childhood memories or whatever and bias. I actually there's one particular big thing about this movie that really makes me like it as one of as the number 2 spot on this list. It's the fact that it kind of doesn't really have a villain. It's something that was pointed out to me on this had a commentary with the original producer and director for the show, who was also the writer. From 4Kids at the time when they were doing the production and everything. They were talking about how they liked this one in particular because there was no villain. Whereas in the first 2 movies we had Mewtwo and Lawrence III or Jalarudin, whatever the hell his name, the green-haired guy, the collector guy. This one didn't really have a bad guy in the same kind of way. The closest equivalents are the Unknown, who are, a wild force of just they're doing their natural order of things in which they're trying to absorb energy. Their sustenance is the dreams and the thoughts of human beings. There's Molly, who is a little girl and doesn't know what the hell she literally doesn't know what the hell she's doing. And is projecting her her lost, confused, little girl isms, through the power of the Unknown. And Entei, who is the threat, more or less, to Ash and her heroes, who are basically, in this movie, they're trying to save Ash's mom, who's been basically captured. I think this is the only movie that actually has Ash's mom in it, as an actual character, in the main plot of the story. But anyway, Entei is basically just an imagination, like a projection of Molly's imaginative thoughts about her dad, because both of her parents are gone and all this. It's really in depth and actually really, really cool. There's something about this, the story of this one that is still incredibly strong, incredibly unique. And I would honestly put this one up against any other truly good anime movie. A lot of people can probably look at the top 10 highest grossing anime films and be like, oh, whatever. The only reason that Pokemon and Yu-Gi and all that stuff or whatever is because they had all the marketing behind it and they're selling toys and stuff. You could argue with that, but at the same time, I feel like this one and another one that I'll be talking about soon totally deserve to be in that list and made the amount of money that they got. Because Pokemon the third movie is really, really well done. There were definitely a few liberties with the English version that I didn't love when they were explaining what they did with certain lines and certain things. But overall, I feel like it didn't hurt it too badly. It was still a cool setup, and it still got the same kind of basic point across. And also a very special mention to pre-Yu-Gi-Oh! These were two incredibly amazing performances by Amy Birnbaum, who played Molly, and of course the illustrious Dan Green as Entei, Jesus Christ, as Entei, before doing Yu-Gi. And I remember when I interviewed him many years ago, he actually said that Entei was one of the proudest performances he's ever given in something, and it shows because it was quite fantastic. So definitely, please watch Spell of the Unknown, Pokemon the third movie, if you can track that one down. And that brings us, of course, last but not least, to Mewtwo Strikes Back, my number one choice, the first Pokemon movie. In Japanese. Now, before you all jump down my throats, I do still have a very kind attachment to Pokemon the first movie as it was, and as in the way that we got it. Funny story, I remember shortly before the movie came out in the U.S., and I remember reading all about it on the magazines and everything. I was super excited about it. I remember going to this one store where I used to buy a lot of my Pokemon figures. They were imports, it was a Japanese import store, and they had what I imagine was probably a bootleg copy of Pokemon the first movie in Japanese with subtitles. I was very close to wanting to buy it, and I decided not to. But interestingly, I saw the movie in Japanese many years later, well over a decade after I had seen it originally in theaters, and my mom took me to go see it on opening day, which was a great time, and I do, again, like it for what it is. Not Pokemon the first movie. Mewtwo Strikes Back in Japanese is an amazing film about Mewtwo. This is where, and the reason, because I think that a lot of the liberties that were taken, and I get why they were done, I understand, they explain them very, very clearly and very in-depth in the commentary, the same two guys, the producer and director from 4Kids at the time. It makes sense. That said, Mewtwo Strikes Back in Japanese is a film about Mewtwo. It is a film about a genetically created, not human, not Pokemon thing that doesn't understand anything, that doesn't know what it is, and is angry about it, takes its anger out on the world, creates this huge, elaborate, holy crap thing that is at the behest of everybody else because it's of its uncontrollable rage and everything. And it, again, like some of the other ones, it changes because of the perspectives that it's given through Ash and Pikachu and the bond that they have. Seeing the movie as it was, also with what was packaged separately and labeled as the origin of Mewtwo, the extended story with the scientist and the young Mewtwo, and talking with Amber, or the daughter who was trying to be the professor was trying to clone and all that, Dr. Fuji, whatever his name was. All of that in place where it was originally supposed to be makes this film stand out so much more than it did originally when we got it in the U.S. See, and I keep accidentally saying originally as if, like, you know, the English version predates it, but that's not the case. The original version of this movie, unaltered and unskewed around to basically fit with what, at the time, they thought American kids and probably their parents would identify with. It still worked. It's still enjoyable for what it is in English, but I really, truly feel that the Japanese version of this film, and there's not even like that many like major differences to the script or the actual like overall story, but those little minor differences, you know, whether it be a line of dialogue or the intention of a character or the music being completely different, most of which was music that was later used in the series as well. It's so incredibly. It's so impactful, and then to top it all off as well, like after the entire story is done, the ending credits theme, which I believe it's like "Away with the Wind" or something like that, and I think it's sung by the actress that plays the daughter that was like attempted to be cloned by Dr. Fuji or whatever. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, it's a beautiful song. It made me tear up. You'd think like, oh no, this is the way that I saw it, so you know, biasedly, this is what I love. But no, honestly, this version of the movie is my favorite of any of the Pokemon movies that I have seen. It's so incredible, and if you can find it legally and watch Pokemon the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, in Japanese, I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. That's going to wrap us up. So thank you very much for listening and watching. I hope you enjoyed this. And please, in the comments below, let me know about your favorite Pokemon movies. They can be, you can do a top 6 list or a top whatever list, or just any particular stories about your favorite ones or anything like that. Would love to hear your thoughts. And if you have ideas for future Pokemon-related Kirblog topics for the next few weeks as the month of December carries on, leave a comment about that too, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, whatever you feel like. Look forward to the next one. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll be having a special guest. So thanks as always, and I will catch you all later in a Master Ball, because that's what you need to catch a Mewtwo. Like, really, let's be honest here. I couldn't do it. I've tried. It's too hard.